Morning, everyone. Welcome to the NCSEA 101, everything you want to know or ask. Leo and I are absolutely thrilled to be here this morning with all of you. My name is Al Spada, and for those of you I haven't met, I'm Executive Director of NCSEA, and my co-presenter this morning, who many of you may have met, is Leo Barron, who's NCSEA's MO and Committee Services Director. We have a ton of information to go over with you this morning about NCSEA, everything you'd want to know. But the key to me is the last part of the title of this presentation. It's the asking part. We want to encourage you in every way possible to use the chat function to ask questions, or as Leo just mentioned, raise your hand, scream, jump up and down, whatever you want to do to interrupt us during the presentation to ask questions verbally. Either is perfectly fine. Leo and I will push through all of our presentation and wait till the end if that's what you think it's best for questions. But again, don't feel bad about interrupting us. We want to answer anything and everything we can for you about your association, NCSEA. Next slide, please, Leo. So here's a brief agenda for our presentation this morning and what we're going to talk about. Obviously, we're in the middle of that welcome part. But then we have a bunch of other topics that we're going to hit on in the various areas of NCSEA. We're going to talk about membership. We're going to talk about your volunteer leadership. We're going to talk about events and education. We're going to talk about some of the initiatives NCSEA is involved with for the profession and some of the initiatives we're involved with for the SEAs. We're also going to take a quick tour of a couple segments of the website so you know where some of the resources are so you can access them in the future. And I'll repeat again, questions that you have about NCSEA, don't hesitate to put them in the chat box or offer them up verbally for us. So the first slide is to talk about us from a 30,000-foot view and talk about NCSEA's vision and our mission. In 2019, NCSEA went through another strategic planning process and updated both our vision and mission, as well as the rest of the strategic plan. Prior to that, it had been about 5 years since NCSEA updated its strategic plan. We brought a group of volunteer leaders into the room, members of the board of directors, members of our volunteer committees. We also brought in SEA leadership to help us work on this strategic plan and get as much engagement information from the various stakeholders as possible. I'm going to read these two statements for you because they truly do guide our board of directors, our volunteer leadership, and our staff on a daily basis. The vision: structural engineers are valued for their contributions to safe structures and resilient communities. The mission: NCSEA, in partnership with its member organizations, supports practicing structural engineers to be highly qualified professionals and successful leaders. It's critical for me to point out that phrase, in partnership with its member organizations, the state SEAs, because that truly is one of the guiding principles for NCSEA and what we do. We are truly supporting on a daily basis everything we can with those state structural engineers associations.
And Al Spada, what a segue when you think about it, because when you talk about membership, think about things you join, especially any national organization. What do? You pay your dues. You pull out your credit card, you write the check, and you join as an individual. Done. Here, it's a little different. When you think about it, how many members does NCSEA have? 44. You go, wait a minute, that doesn't add up. There's tens of thousands of it. No, 44 member organizations. Those member organizations represent 44 structural engineering associations and Washington, D.C. You go, wait a minute, your math is off. Well, remember, SECM, Missouri, Kansas, represents 2 states, but is one organization. So yeah, you join not at the national level. So if an individual calls us at the office, for example, and they say, hi, I'd like to join. Our first question is, what state you from? And they answer the question, maybe Texas. And we say, okay, here's the information on how you get involved and how you would join. Texas or Nebraska or California. So again, it's all about getting involved at the state level. Then, yes, the benefits then go up to the national level. So yes, we do represent over 10,000 individual structural engineers across the country, but again, at the state level. NCSEA does offer corporate memberships. We have a sustaining level membership for engineering firms and an associate level membership for suppliers and vendors to the industry. But again, it's all about the individual and it's all about the state groups, which I can't emphasize enough.
I'm going to take a few minutes to talk about the volunteer leadership of NCSEA. These are truly the individuals who are investing amazing amounts of their time to help direct NCSEA on a day-to-day and on a more visionary's purpose. This is your board of directors for 21-22. And I say your board of directors because truly NCSEA is your association. It's also your SEA's association. It's also the Professions Association. These board of directors were nominated by the state SEAs. Many of these members of the board of directors served in leadership positions at the state level. I want to thank them personally because many of them are on the call today for all the support they give NCSEA and all they do on behalf of the profession. They're an amazing group of individuals dedicated to supporting you and supporting the structural engineering profession.
Now you go back to more of the basics. You say, okay, I join. Why do you join any organization? When you sit and think about it, what's the motivation? The typical motivation is because I could do something with someone. I could collaborate with other individuals. I can maybe move the needle on any topic in some direction. I can get involved with more than myself. And all of a sudden, therein lies the beauty of any national group or any state group for that matter. But here is the list of committees. The titles are very self-explanatory, but we'll go through them with you anyway. The point is, people join so they can do stuff together. When you look at the list, you see things such as basic education involved with what happens at the college level. Code advisory, again, very self-explanatory. But think about communications. What do you mean by communications internal, communications external? Communications internal, how we talk to each other, how engineers will talk, structural engineers will talk to each other, and how SEAs will talk to each other and collaborate with each other. External, our voice outside of the profession, whether it's to architects or construction industry or whatever it might be, or professors or students or teachers, however you want to look at it. So again, two different voices, hopefully saying the same thing, definitely saying the same thing. But again, two different audiences. Continuing ed, right? You get that college degree, you're not done yet. Publications, resilience. When you talk about SEER committee, what does that mean? The Structural Engineering Emergency Response Committee. And the SE3 committee, Structural Engineering Engagement and Equity. Structural licensure. The Summit Committee, involved with our annual summit. Sustainable Design, fairly new committee. And the Young Member Group Support Committee, a group involved with trying to make sure that all the young member groups across the country are doing what they need to do. Sure, you can take that little web address there, that URL, and find all the information you wish. Go on the website, take a look. But what an opportunity you have right now over the next 2.5 days you want to know more, to get involved and find out, because there will be interactive sessions running over the next 2 days where you'll be able to go in and talk to the committee chairs, learn what their goals are, learn what their motivations are, learn what the committee is trying to tackle over the next 6, 12, 18 months. So register for those. These interactive sessions are an opportunity, a golden opportunity to learn more about the committee structure and what they're doing right now.
There was a chat I want to highlight right now asking everyone to please type in what SEA they represent. If you haven't put your information in there, please get in there. We'd love to see what SEAs are represented in this session today. I want to take a minute just to introduce your staff at NCSEA. While most of the staff are not structural engineers, we do have one. They are association professionals dedicated to supporting you, your SEA, and the structural engineering profession. I urge you, as Leo said before, please ask us questions. Even if they're geared towards your state SEA, maybe we can help you in some way or another. We are here to support you. It could be questions on education. It could be questions related to licensure. It could be questions related to your account. Don't hesitate. Drop us an email, give us a call. If you're trying to reach out to a committee, we're more than happy to get you in touch with those chairs. We are here again, dedicated to supporting you, your SEAs, and the profession. Feel free to engage with us in any way that you can.
A lot of times when you think of NCSEA, you think of education. You'll think of the webinar example. And yes, I agree with you. NCSEA is known for its technical education offerings, but did you know, as they say, that there's much more than just that? For example, yeah, with the way we laid this out, we said technical webinars, but there's more. For example, maybe some of you have attended that economic outlook for structural engineering discussion that we had. We had one last year. We had one this year. That's a much more management specific kind of topic. Where's the industry heading? What's the economic forecast for the architectural, construction, and engineering fields? Absolutely. So valuable information if you are a small or big business to understand what's happening in the not too distant future. But there are also soft skill presentations. There's an SE review course. There's a Cal OES safety assessment program presentation. All of these are available through NCSEA. And again, many of them are involved, or I should say, many of them are available as a subscription, or you could a la carte and purchase what you need, or get involved with those that make the most sense for you, yourself, and your company. And then when I go back up to that list and I say technical, let me emphasize about Diamond Review. You know, it's a program that was developed by NCSEA to evaluate and approve continuing education courses, seminars, and conferences and all that. But again, allowing you to make sure that you get your CEUs and your PDHs, which is so important for the profession. All right, one speaker, one topic, 1 hour. Those kinds of things do exist, but there's more. There's things such as series. We had an SE3 series that just was completed. We had a DEI series that was last year. As a matter of fact, you can go to the NCSEA website and find the information there and actually view the presentations from that event. So you could think of those types of things. How about this retreat? Leadership retreat that was held last year virtually, is being held this year virtually. Opportunities for you to be able to say, I want to be a better volunteer. I want to be a better committee leader. I want to be a better leader in general when it comes to my volunteer world. Again, giving you those kinds of things that you could use and apply immediately in many ways. Yes, another interesting thing that I found that I looked at, I went, strategic thinking for structural engineers, that's coming up. Here's a definite difference in the way we do programming and specific events, something that will really be out of the box thinking for structural engineers. And then don't forget our annual summit, a special event with special presentations and the opportunity to collaborate and meet. So again, when you think of education and events, that whole big thing, think of all these things when you talk about NCSEA. And this slide is from our annual report. I captured one little image from there. And again, it kind of summarizes, again, some of the things we just mentioned. But I want you to look at just one of these bubbles, if nothing else, and that little blue ball right there, it says 10. And beneath it, it says 10 SEA partnered with NCSEA on educational events. Yeah, we did that too last year, and are doing it again this year, where the SEAs have come to us and said, hey, how do you do this? We need to pull a virtual event together. How do we do it? We want to do our annual event. We're not sure. We want to do we've never done webinars before. We've had that happen with. So the opportunity to do that is important to us. We need to be able to assist with that. We need to be able to collaborate with the SCAs on that or guide them in any way we can. Again, opportunities for us to be able to do that builds that relationship, that partnership between the SCA, state level, and the national organization.
Like all of you, we've gone all virtual with all of our events in the last year. And that was last year's 2020 NCSEA Structural Engineering Summit. We moved to the all virtual format. Were we upset? Yes. We love the opportunity to get together. So much more can be achieved when we're face to face. But we're also proud of the event that did occur in 2020. We had an amazing exhibit hall that was open for over a month, allowing more than 7,000 visits to see those exhibitors. We had more than 50 speakers involved in the event. It truly was a success virtually, helping that supply chain, helping that entire industry come together. For this year's summit, we're in October in New York. Right now, we are planning for both an in-person and a virtual event. In the meeting term world, we call it a hybrid event. Look for more information coming out about that event soon. But we're hoping we are an opportunity to bring this industry together, not just virtually, but in person again in October in New York. I'm really looking forward to that opportunity, and let's hope we're able to proceed that way safe and healthy.
One of the things on the agenda is publications, and you say, well, I know what you're talking about. You're talking about Structure Magazine. I get that publication every month, understand. What else? Well, yeah, let's make sure that that's emphasized. Structure Magazine is published in conjunction with SEI and CASE. And it's available print, it's available digital. And don't forget too, there are sponsored webinars that come through Structure Magazine that you can have opportunities to be part of and listen to. But there's more than just that. There's Structural Connection. That's a monthly newsletter that comes out, and it contains information on NCSEA events and programs and member perks, and we put links to member organization events in there and a multitude of other things. So that's a monthly publication too. Don't forget that there are technical publications. Partnerships with ICC have given the opportunity for books. Actually, 3 of them are listed in that slide right there. And then books that are published by NCSEA, such as the Glass Guide. So again, when you think publications, you might only think of one thing, but there's a multitude of things through NCSEA that the member has access to.
Now we're kind of taking a little bit different step in this presentation and talking about what I think are some of the most exciting, newest developments within NCSEA. We're talking about bringing the profession together. We're talking about supporting the profession. We're going to be talking about what we do to support the SEAs. Leo mentioned Structure Magazine, and that's maybe one of the greatest partnerships NCSEA has been involved in. NCSEA, CASE, and SEI work together on developing the editorial for that publication on a monthly basis. It's a value to everyone in all 3 organizations' membership base and truly shows the strength of the collaboration between those 3 organizations. And in the last several years, the leadership of those 3 organizations has stepped up that collaboration and partnership to an even greater level. They hold leadership meetings every 6 months to talk about upcoming initiatives to ensure that collaboration can happen. Yes, each of the 3 groups has their focuses, but they still want to make sure there isn't a redundancy of efforts, trying to focus on what can all 3 organizations do for the betterment of the profession. That joint collaboration resulted in the joint call to action last summer to denounce racial injustice. And that ultimately led to the DEI initiatives that NCSEA pushed out last year. That collaboration has created the Structural Engineering Licensure Coalition that's existed for many years to support the licensure advocacy efforts on both the state level and beyond. That is another shining example of collaboration between the three organizations. And there was a joint town hall that the three presidents held a couple months ago that went through a myriad of different initiatives facing the structural engineering profession, and how the three organizations are working together and attacking those various initiatives. The collaboration among the three organizations is truly something spectacular and unique. And the leadership of those three organizations should be commended by the amount of work they do together on behalf, for the betterment of the structural engineering profession. We mentioned for the profession a lot. And we started with talking about what's for you as an individual. We talk about what's for the SEAs and how we support them. And ultimately, we talk about how we support the profession. This slide has a ton of initiatives on it. We're going to talk about each of them a little bit, but there's so much more behind these. But what you have to see is how much work NCSEA is doing on behalf of the structural engineering profession. At the top of the list is one of our newest initiatives and one of the most exciting. It's the PR and marketing initiative that was launched in January. NCSEA has partnered with the expert PR and marketing firm. We're examining the industry, examining the marketplace, doing a lot of data collecting right now. This effort is led by a steering committee that's comprised of our board of directors, representatives from the SEAs. The goal, again, is to promote the structural engineering profession and all that it does. Expect a lot more communication to come out on this in the near future after this initial data analysis phase is completed. But it truly is an exciting initiative to watch as it comes down the road over the next few months. We've referenced our diversity, equity, inclusion initiatives, but we didn't reference the new diversity and structural engineering scholarship that was initiated. Applications are being accepted now through April 30th. This will be NCSEA's first scholarship being delivered. It's an exciting event that we're looking forward to. The Excellence in Structural Engineering Awards are typically well known throughout the industry, but it's a shining example of showing the excellence that can be achieved, the innovation that can be achieved in the projects in our industry. I applaud the awards committee. I applaud Carrie Johnson, who chairs that committee, and all the efforts they put in every single year for that awards program. Leo mentioned our SEER committee, and they have a joint alliance with ICC regarding a disaster response program. This disaster response alliance is focused on training for second responders, but is also working through the development of the roster of second responders, so local jurisdictions have somewhere to go to find structural engineers who can come into an area after a hurricane or an earthquake strikes to examine those remaining structures. It's truly another way that structural engineers are out there saving lives.
And you continue with this slide, you take a look at licensure advocacy support. We kind of mentioned that already, but you think of it as Structural Licensure Committee, NCSEA, but the coalition too, that was mentioned in the previous slide. Same thing with building code advocacy. Sure, there's the Code Advisory Committee, but then never does any of these work in a bubble. The involvement with other groups, the involvement with the state groups is so important. We're going to show you when we come up to that one slide and we show the website a bit about STEM outreach and examples of that. One of the little pictures on this slide is Alabama doing some student outreach, but that's important too. That's a difficult one because people look at that and go, that's true missionary work. How do you put metrics to that and show that what you do for a grade school group turns into an engineer in 10 or so years? But again, many of the members across the country are involved with STEM outreach, and we encourage that. We want to see that happen. And then don't forget a career center. The career center exists. It gives you the opportunity to find the next talent that needs for your company. Al, would you like to talk a little bit about the foundation too?
Yep, the NCSEA Foundation is another relatively new initiative for the organization. Established in 2020, this foundation is here as a true 501c3 to support the profession. It's there to provide support for our SEAs and our MO grant program. It's there to help with the DEI initiatives like the scholarship program. It's there to help with research funding for the industry. It truly was another step that NCSEA needed to take to help to support the profession better and stronger in the future. Now, while Leo brings up the website here, we thought this was a great opportunity to showcase some of those resources and where you can find them. We all know in our busy days, we often are looking for those resources last minute, trying to find things when we need it. So we wanted to take this opportunity to highlight that resources section on the website. You can see that there's a bunch of different areas we've already covered, but Leo's going to click on the resources tab and we're just going to drop a couple down for you. But again, I want to remind you and urge you, if you have questions, please feel free to throw them in chat. And we are going to open the cameras up at the end if you'd rather ask those questions verbally. We wanted to take a chance just to click on the SE licensure section. You'll see here a lot of information put together by the licensure committee talking about the various states and what's going on within them. And truly that is the function of our licensure committee, to provide that advocacy support to the states looking for help on this issue, trying to advocate for themselves on the state level. Leo's going to click on the DEI link here, and ultimately you can see some of the webinars that we pushed out last summer. They're here for your viewing and training. Please don't hesitate to go to the website to watch these webinars. There's also the section here for the SE3 Read, Watch, Listen column. That's a part of every month's Structural Connection newsletter. I have to commend this committee for the work they do in support of this information, pulling resources for you to read, watch, and listen on a monthly basis related to DEI initiatives. Look for it in this month's Structural Connection newsletter. The last section we were going to highlight is STEM and outreach, so you can see the variety of tools out there. Leo mentioned the MOLA, Structural Engineering Pit, that's become such a key for SEAs doing outreach at the elementary level. There's also PowerPoints here, videos here, other tools that you can utilize if you want to do STEM outreach in your local area. Yeah, this was a very quick look at a small area of the NCSEA website. We thought it was important to reinforce some of our words with some of the tools that are already existent on the website for you to be able to use. Leo's now going to click back to the presentation, and we're going to talk a little bit about what we're doing for the state SEAs.
Again, it is about what happens at that local level. Education support, we mentioned that, yes, and we continue to do that. As a matter of fact, this year, we're already working on 2 events that are going to be annual conferences for the local SEA. The grant program exists, yes, the foundation is supporting that. Again, sometimes there's a program at the local level and you go, gee, I don't know if we could underwrite this whole thing, or we really would like to have additional seed money to be successful with this. How do we pull it off? The grant program exists, again, focused on the SEA. So event support is obvious. Speaker recommendations, yes, on the website, it can be found. And again, for example, I just recently received an email from one SEA who says, we're looking for speakers. My first question is, what topics are you looking for? The staff might not know who the experts are in those topics, but then we could find that information, talk to our committee structure, talk to some other leaders in the industry, and find who that person is, and then supply those names and specific topics to that SEA. Young member group support, absolutely. SE3 support, whether it's trying to start another chapter locally, that can be done. And then once a year, we collect reports from all the SEAs, summaries of everything they have basically done. And then we use that and share that as benchmarking data to determine what average dues are, how many meetings people are having a year, What are they trying to attempt to do? How many years has their delegate been involved, or their alternate delegate? Those kinds of basic information. So again, to help them be able to be better at what they do every day as an SCA volunteer leader.
As Leo pulls up our members only portal on the website, we're going to talk a little bit more about some of these resources that are only available to the individual members of the SCAs. Leo, you may not realize, but your camera went out a few seconds ago or a few minutes ago. I just wanted to let you know that as we start going through the website.
And I appreciate that, but since I'm staring at a second screen, they're going to only see my right ear, and I didn't want that to happen.
Okay, no worries. So Leo's going to click through on the member portal. There is a login for this portal, so it's only through the membership side of the equation. And these are some members only resources that are available here. There's other things on this section, but we're going to focus in this area right now. We're going to go to the SCA resources tab under the member resources. Developed several years ago was a toolkit for the SCAs. We've now broken out that toolkit onto the website in a variety of different documents for you to be able to access. These are documents related to the speakers list that Leo referenced. These are documents related to committees at the state level that Leo referenced. These are here for you as resources that you can utilize to help support your SCA. Leo, did you want to run through a few of these other resources?
I did. As a matter of fact, you could take a look at this and see that there's more, such as the SCA reports, the summaries of that benchmarking, if you want to call it data, from years gone by, outreach resources, forms for your SCA. But take a look at this. Last year's SCA leadership retreat, the three presenters are there. Their information is there. Their presentations are there. Their slides and handouts are there. And then go a little further, and you could find the communication webinars that we hold. Those, the recordings, the materials are all there. Again, you want to go back and listen to something? You can. You want to share it with your leadership? You can. All can be found on one page under the member portal, under member only resources, SCA resources.
We would be remiss not to reference the Internal Communications Committee and their leadership for all their efforts in supporting this section of the website, as well as the SCA Leadership Retreat that's going on today. It's a committee that's focused on us talking to ourselves, meaning the other structural engineers, the SCAs, the committees, all communicating with each other. It's a unique committee, but very valued in this profession because, again, we all have to make sure we can talk about what we're doing and how we can support each other. And that Internal Communications Committee is at the heart of that. So the key as we wrap up this presentation, to me, is the question that is on the screen right now. What does this mean to all of you? We've talked about how NCSEA is here for you. We've talked about how NCSEA is here for the state SCAs. We've talked about how NCSEA is here for the structural engineering profession. But that all turns back to how are we to help you? Why do we exist? And ultimately, we believe it is to try to deliver you solutions. These are very general terms that are on the screen, but they really are applicable as to why you join an association, why you're engaged in association, why you're involved in an association. This presentation gave you many different opportunities where you may be engaging with NCSEA or you could be engaging with NCSEA. But we realize it is about professional advancement. It is about networking. Can you find that next mentor for you? Can you find that colleague to help you solve that seismic or that wind problem that's facing you? Can you figure out how you could be more strategic in your day-to-day work at your SE firm? You're trying to figure out how you can help support your SCA more. Is there some way with your committee on the local level to connect with an SE3 committee at the national level? Is there a way that your SEA can understand how your dues should be structured? And I just threw out a bunch of different topics. But again, it's about those connections that are involved in associations, that networking that you can do that helps you find those solutions that you need for your professional advancement. And we also know it is about education. We can think traditionally about that webinar education that we talked about. We can think about it as that summit education over multiple days. It may be that technical education, it may be that management, it may be that soft skills. But we also know that there's that education that happens in those online forums. There's education that happens in just virtual discussion rooms. There's education that happens in those one-on-one conversations in an email, or because you pick up the phone and you chat with someone. We try to build that education into anything we do to help support you as you go about your daily business and as you go about supporting your SEA and your profession. Because ultimately, if we're supporting you and we're supporting your SEA, we all are ultimately supporting our profession, the structural engineering profession. And that's why we're here today talking about NCSEA. So I want to thank you on behalf of Leo and myself for listening to all this information about NCSEA. We know the conversation has been fairly one-sided right now, but we would love to open up all the cameras and see what questions you might have about the information we presented. I'd also like to acknowledge there are several of our board members, current and former, in the room. And again, I want to thank them for their volunteer leadership. We also have several of our committee leaders in the room, and I need to thank them for their membership, excuse me, for their leadership. The volunteer committee members and the volunteer board members exemplify the height of volunteer leadership and are truly the driving force behind NCSEA. So thank you on behalf of Leo and myself again for all your time this morning. We are happy to answer any questions that you might want to ask verbally or put into the chat. So I will turn it over to you and we'll see if there are any questions out there. Hey, Leo, I have a question about it. There was one that came in about an SEA event. If an SEA needs support from NCSEA for an upcoming event, I think it was referenced to monthly meetings. Maybe you could talk a little bit about that process and how it operates?
Be happy to. Well, typically, it comes in as an email or a phone call. Receive these all the time where it's like, what do we do? How would you do this? Can we have a discussion? And that's what I usually like to start with. I'll be doing that with one group next week, for example. We're going to sit down, the four of us, you know, three from their board, and maybe one person that's their events manager or their events person, and just find out what they want to accomplish. Is it an attempt at a simple little 1 day, one event, 1 hour? Don't know. They need to tell me. So once I learn that, I am surrounded by experts in my fellow staffers that I could say, okay, here's what they want to try. Is this possible? Can we do this? Can we assist them? Can we guide them even further? You know, yourself, with a lot of these SEAs, they're fairly well established. They've got it down to somewhat of a system. But when the pandemic hit, it put the brakes on so many events that many did not know where to go. So Al, I think that the step one is to have that discussion, and I love to do that because a lot of times I get better informed of what they're trying to accomplish. I might be able to share what other groups have done or wanting to do, and that could refocus their approach. And then we could start making some decisions on how do you plan it, how do you do it, how do you promote it, when do you do it, when do you promote it, and all those types of things. So it works out very well with that initial, if you want to say, outreach by them, so that we could make some basic decisions and some guidance.
Another question had come in about how do I get involved with a committee? There was a little more background in there, but I think that's kind of the simple, basic question. If I find a committee that interests me, how do I get involved and what's the time commitment? Any thoughts on that one, Leo?
Again, when I get someone that says to me, I want to know more, my main objective is to connect them with the right person. And the right person typically is the chair or the chair people, whoever they are, and say to them, here's someone that has shown interest. We have a formal volunteer application that you should complete. Why? Because it itemizes your specifics, what you're trying to do, what you want out of the experience as much as anything. But then at the very least, it needs to go to that chairperson. That chairperson then takes it and they can start having a discourse, one-on-one kind of a conversation. And I think there's the beauty of that. It truly is. Because a lot of times you want to get involved, but you're not sure. Is it going to take hours out of my week or hours out of my month? Or is it just a little bit? And I'm sure there's committee people on this discussion too, that would say to me, they are welcome to contact me and I will invite them to the next meeting, allowing them to just be part of the next meeting as a guest. Again, I don't think that would be any chairperson would be more than happy to do that. So Al, I agree with you there. I think that's what we can do as a staff, and we do all the time, to connect people with each other.
And the reality is you put in as much time or as little time as you can. There isn't going to be a committee chair out there that's going to demand 50 hours a week from anybody. Ultimately, you can only engage at the level you can engage. But trust me, it's also the flip side. You're only going to get out of it what you're able to put into it. So you're always going to be asked, but do what you can handle. We love to see micro volunteering at a small level. And if you have more time, great. We had a question that came in about what are we seeing from the membership levels, our membership amounts at the state level, the membership counts at the state level. Are they going down? Are they increasing? Overall, what are we seeing? And I'll give a quick commentary on this, and then I'd love Leo to jump in as well. If we look at it from a macro level perspective, we honestly haven't seen much change from last year to this year. We saw a slight decrease, somewhere around 1%, but overall it was very consistent with the previous year's membership levels. But that's looking at it again from a national perspective in all 44 SEAs. I can honestly say when you analyze it more from SEA to SEA, it changes dramatically. Some are down 20%, some are up 10 or 15%. But overall, generally, it was relatively consistent from last year to this year. That doesn't mean we can rest on our laurels. We have to continue to find value. We have to keep pushing out why the state SEAs are critical, why NCSEA is critical, because people have choices. And as we know, generations approach associations very differently. But from, again, a macro perspective, the numbers haven't seen much of a reduction. But I'll be honest, when COVID first hit and the pandemic first started, we expected to see a greater decrease when the membership renewals were coming up. That was the expectation. But I'll applaud that maybe there has been value delivered and people have seen the value in their associations in the virtual world and have said, I'm going to continue to support that. But it's up to us, me and the NCSEA staff, and it's up to leaders of the state SEAs to keep defining that value. Anything to add to that, Leo?
Yeah, I just happen to have a piece of paper in front of me. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 SEAs had noted a double-digit membership decrease, percentage membership decrease. So that means the other 33 were flat or better, and there was some that were better. What we noticed was, I think most of this, any member of any organization, there was a level of concern where they said, look, I need to recontinue my involvement. I'm not going to jump ship just because it's a bad year in the sense of everything. So again, I think a lot of members did that, but there is also some groups, and they admitted when they gave those numbers that they hadn't invoiced on time and they hadn't sent things out on time. So it's like anything. When you're 100% volunteer, if you're busy, it's hard to do your volunteer work, and we understand that. So again, is there something we could offer? I don't know, so that's why I'm always thrilled when someone comes to me and says, hey, we have a problem, or we have a compliment too, but we have a problem. How do we fix this? a lot of times I could connect them with someone else that's already doing something to solve that kind of a problem. Maybe one of their neighbor SEAs that you don't even realize has gone through this and is trying to solve it live. So we, again, Al, you know, it's always connect those right people. If you can do that, you can solve a lot of problems.
I received another question about how do I submit an article to Structure Magazine? Yay, I applaud that 100%. Anybody that's willing to write and put their name out there and etc., I applaud you 100%. There is a formal process through the Structure website to submit your ideas for an article or your abstracts for an article, and then gets reviewed by the editorial board that oversees Structure. That board is made up of representatives from NCSEA, CASE, and SEI. That is the formal process. It's critical to follow that process. But I urge you, if you have questions about it, I'd get you in touch with our editorial chair to walk through what your article idea is. I don't think it's fair, if you haven't gone through the process before, just to submit it blind to that abstract process. Get your thoughts together. We'll introduce you to John Del Pino, the editorial chair, and talk a little bit about that article so you can make sure that abstract fits the needs of the magazine, and we can make sure expectations are set on both sides. I know it can be a little scary to put your words in writing, but there's a whole framework developed behind it to help you through that writing and editing process to ensure your message gets out there and the information gets out there. So if you are interested in submitting an article, please feel free to drop me an email and I'll connect you with that chair so we can talk about that a little bit. Leo, I saw there were a couple questions that came in on chat. Did you see those questions? I want to have to read them for a second.
Well, I'll tell you one thing. Jeanette Torrance said, I'm your NCSEA rep on Structure. So yes, Jeanette, thank you. And Jeanette's in the crowd here. So yes, if you, she's waving right there. So she'll be happy to hold your hand through that process, would you not? And she was, yeah, thumbs up. There you go. There you go. So that's good.
There was a question that came in about what SEAs are able to maintain or increase their membership throughout this last year. I'll put a few key points out there. I saw several very successful SEAs truly engage, not just in virtual meetings, meaning virtual webinars out to their membership. That was great. But they also held virtual discussions. They tried to get people in a room to talk about topics virtually. No, it's not the same as face-to-face, but it was to augment those more formal webinars out there. I saw virtual tours that were going on for some of the young member groups out there, walking through some of these sites as it's going on to give, again, a different look, a different perspective, a different feel to people as to what was happening and what the SEA was providing in terms of value for those memberships. Other things that you saw, Leo, throughout the pandemic that SEAs were doing?
What I also saw was, which was a big surprise, many of them were complimenting themselves, which I was glad, and said, we increased attendance at various events. In other words, the typical, if you have to get in a car and drive somewhere and attend and park and listen and then get back in a car and drive home, those annual events or monthly events, the number of people attending those when they turned virtual increased. Why? Well, think about it. If you don't have to go through that effort, you might just log on in and visit with or attend an event. So states that are long and narrow, you know, or wide and narrow, the Tennessees and the Illinois and the Minnesotas that have a little group up in Duluth, et cetera, all of a sudden they are seeing increased numbers in certain events just because they're getting people attending who would never attend because it's just too far to drive or too long to get there. So again, numbers have increased, which I found interesting too. Not in everything, but in select presentations and programs.
I would urge you, those of you in the SEA leadership, to continue with both the virtual and in-person as much as you're able to handle, even as we start coming back to face-to-face meetings again. Really for the reason Leo just discussed. Many of you are from very large states And it's difficult today. We all know with the commitments we have to travel as much, to get away for 3 or 4 hours. We can do it on some occasion, but maybe we can't do it every month anymore. The amount of engagement that's happened from further distances with these virtual events makes people feel that they're a part of the association. I know it's scary because we think everybody's going to go the easy way and just go virtual, but I can tell you they aren't. There is a value you bring by bringing these like-minded people together into one location that isn't easily replicated virtually and probably never will be fully replicated virtually. And there are people that will continue to want to engage face-to-face regardless of the generation they're from. But by offering both, and I know how hard it can be, it is truly a great way to offer up all the solutions for engagement you can to your membership. So please try. And if NCSEA can continue to support you with both those efforts, please don't hesitate to reach out to us to see what we can do. As we're coming to the last few minutes of the presentation and discussion, I'd like to see, are there any other questions from anyone in the audience? And if not, please, we're happy to give you back a few minutes to your day, and we appreciate you joining us. But any other last minute questions from anyone in the audience? All right, well, from snowy Chicago, yes, snowy Chicago, Leo and I would like to thank you very, very much for all your time this morning and all your support of NCSEA. We truly are lucky to be a part of this industry and helping you do everything that you can do. And I'll say it one last time, please reach out to us, reach out to our volunteer leadership, reach out to anyone involved with NCSEA for any questions you might have. We really want to support you, your SEA, and the profession in any way that we can. Thank you very much, and rest assured I've given you back 7 minutes of your day to go do what you need to do. Enjoy the rest of the day, and please, if you haven't registered, take this opportunity to register for the welcome or keynote or any of the committee interaction sessions throughout the week. We think this is a great opportunity to learn even more that we couldn't cover today about NCSEA. So I urge you to look at that list. It's a long list and plenty of opportunities for engagement. Please take advantage of those, and thank you. Anything we can do, just let us know. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Echo and ditto. Thank you from me too.